Day 5 of the April 99 7-day retreat in Springwater. So quiet it is. Not even the distant traffic. These questions come up all the time, not unique to any one particular person or retreat. A mild complaint, one may not mean it as a complaint, but it is in a way, about this mind just keeping churning out crap. Totally inane stuff. One doesn't even know what it has to do with anything. Or lots of fantasy, full of desire. And then the exclamation, why did I come here and spend all this money or travel all these miles just to sit with that? I wish it were like it was last time or a few years ago, or how it could be if it were like the books say. We get upset, or this body-mind gets upset at what makes itself noticed. Thought upon thought upon thought, jumping back and forth, and emotions going with it. Getting upset over that, and getting upset meaning more thoughts about what it is that one feels and sees. The stupid stuff, unnecessary stuff, endless churning. And in this upset over it, or the boredom with it, which is also an attitude, it should be different. That's what it's right underneath of boredom. Why is it like this if it could be like that? I want something different. Not able to be with a sense of withdrawal from interesting stimulation. In this upset, in this reactiveness, which is also part of the mind, just as the churning is, so is the reactiveness to churning. All stuff of thought, conditioning, habit. In that activity and counter-activity, there's insufficient silence and quiet. Or insufficient listening to the silence in which all of this noise takes place. All of the tumultuousness, the activity, you name it, is taking place in silence, in which the breath flows, comes and goes. No one doing it, it's happening miraculously on its own, and the crows cawing, maybe someone moving or coughing, the heart beating. Has to be really quiet to hear the heart beating. It takes place in quietness, even though it may be thumping around, palpitating. Still, like the stuff of thoughts and emotion, even thunder and lightning takes place in spacious silence. Not the idea of it, it's a beautiful idea, it can even be a comforting idea, but it is actually, it can be palpable. The words cannot capture it. And if one was a little bit less reactive to brain turning out crap upon crap, a little bit less reactive to it, to sort of take it spaciously, noticing the habit, the desire to react, and not going with it, remaining aloof, as it were, from what goes on in this body-mind and has been going on for a whole lifetime as well as millennia. Watchful of reactiveness, noticing it, the desire, or one is already in the midst of reacting, and quieting down with it, letting be what is there, and listening to the silence in which it happens, which means the judge quieting down. Judge becoming aware of itself and abstaining from judging right or wrong, good or bad. Very hard, very difficult for this brain. It just wants to explode with judgment all the time. About the place, about the people, about the food. Not that people bring me a lot of judgments, but I know it is so. One knows this mind, how it loves to judge others. Because then it feels it is somebody important, somebody knowledgeable, more than the others. So, can one become ultra-sensitive to judgment? Not get rid of it or eliminate it, it's impossible. It has to come into view and be questioned whether it is necessary. And whether it can end. Not know the answer. The answer is in the questioning. Can judgment end? Judgment which has just been noticed to right, wrong, terrible, hopeless. Can it end? And one has to listen to the not knowing, to the no answer of this moment. Also, the mind is really incapable of truly judging what is going on in being with hurt, pain, nonsense stuff, dreaming, fantasizing, in at least every once in a while being with it, meaning allowing it to be, suffering it, if you will, enduring it, or questioning it. It's an activity of the mind that it is not used to, that it has not learned in schools. or in growing up at home in the church. This amazing action of being with something without interfering, just allowing it to be in silence. Which actually is a seeing silence. Not to want that, to notice that's the activity of the mind again. Give me that. How can I get it? What can I do? To notice this activity buzzing around in silence. The silence of breathing and cawing and sunning and clouding freely. Without purpose. So, several questions that came up in our last meeting before the free day. One question was about the heart, and one or two people joined in. And it is also not a unique question, it has come up before. Why do you talk so much about the mind, so little or not at all about the heart? And also someone reporting having had a real tight band across the chest, and in the mind having called that his heart, and noticing the labeling, there was something that was dissolving here, opening up, by not giving it a label. And then the question emerged, well, what is the heart? Where is it? And the answer that popped out of this mouth is, all of oneself, all of you is heart, when there's not this dividing intellect. Self-centering, separating. Me from you, and my heart from my mind, my toe from the head. I'm not saying this to bridge things over or unify. Obviously, there are different organs in the body. And talking about the heart or the heart region, one thought arising, a sad thought, a grieving thought, thought of loss, and there's a twinging here in this area, but not just in this area, the whole body is involved. There's this whole area in the chest in which convulsing takes place, crying, sobbing. Even though there is no crying, convulsing, that area begins to vibrate with this thought, sad thought of loss. Very often, this is our biggest sadness, probably. There must be so much convulsing going on at this moment. There is, throughout the world. And why is it, which is so, that I talk so little about the heart, more about the mind being the stuff of thinking and remembering and wanting and fearing, which, as we are careful to point out all the time, is totally connected with all the functions of this body, which involves all the organs. I don't talk about the liver or the kidneys, but they're involved. I don't want to make fun of the heart because it occupies a tremendous place in spiritual tradition. And what do we mean by heart? Do we mean the physiological functioning and location which is different for different people? A heart isn't exactly in the same place for everyone. Last physical that I had with a new doctor, he said, I've never seen a heart sitting this low. I'd never known this. Now I had something to think about. But I don't think when we talk about the heart, we just mean this physiological, anatomical location function. Even though it is palpable, I went through that with a sad thought. We also mean, do we mean the area where compassion is born or where love lives? That just does not live in one area. It is there when one is not occupied with localizing or trying to figure things out. And maybe I can say, even though the heart is not mentioned a lot, does this function which we associate with the heart, that of love and compassion, communicates without being called by a name? The mind, the thought activity needs to be clear, visible, transparent, or else we're fooled by it, tricked by it. We talked about that last time. Snared, enmeshed. When that clarifies, clears up a bit, then maybe love or compassion, both of them, whatever that is, functions unbeknownst to oneself. In this no separation. Another question that came up, again very common. That's why when these questions come up in a talk, they may not be verbatim what somebody said. It's what human beings like you and me feel and express to each other and to oneself. And often a question is slightly changes because many different people have said very similar things. So don't feel misquoted or misunderstood when you don't recognize your own question completely. So this other question is, what's wrong with having a personality? Because toward the end of this last talk, I was saying something about this being, this awareness without division, being beyond personality, beyond self-image, And the question that arises, often accompanied with anxiety, sometimes considerable anxiety, even resistance, is what's wrong with self-images? I've spent a lot of work on that in my life, people will say. I used to have such negative images about myself, the way I was raised. And finally, I think better about myself. I have better pictures of myself, more self-esteem, less negativity. And now hearing you talk the way you do sounds as though this was wrong. We should get rid of it, get rid of our personality. This way of hearing a talk, which is not really hearing it, but interpreting what is being said in terms of one's own attachments and anxieties, can show us something. It shows up where we are in this judging mind, judging right and judging wrong. Toni says something, maybe with great passion or emphasis, and that must be something that's good. And the other, also talked about with passion and emphasis, that must be bad. It's the opposite. She talks about self-images, what they do must be bad. Having no self-image, having one's true self reveal itself, that must be good. I'm putting it maybe a little bit crude, but this is what the brain does with stuff when it's not completely here, without judgment, without self-reference. What is good for me, what I like and what I don't like. That intrudes upon the listening. Remember on the first day we were trying to bring together all the things that impede listening, obstruct it. And this tendency to want to know what is the right thing and what is wrong impedes listening. So we're not saying, I don't think I ever say, maybe I do, I'm not perfect, get rid of this, drop that. It would be so absurd to say that. All that I'm interested in is to bring light to what it actually is that's happening for us, for you and me, in this incredible brain and body mind function. To let it come into view silently. Let the judgments come into view, the interpretations. We often need each other for that. We need to mirror or get mirrored ourselves by somebody pointing out, this may be a projection, this may be an opinion, this is an interpretation. And then not to say, no, it isn't, you're wrong, you've got your own opinions. But to allow this mirror of relationship to reveal ourselves to ourselves. That can only happen when there's diminishing resistance, which means diminishing identification with the stuff. Abstaining from saying, this is my stuff and I'm doing this to myself, but rather, what is it? And allow it to be seen, unobstructed. And realizing, as one person pointed out today, how some things I just don't want to see. They're very subtle. I see them a little bit, but I don't want to see them much more than a little bit. That's discerning, resistance, and maybe questioning it. Why resist anything? So this matter of self-image self-reference. Let it expose itself and speak to you, if we can put it this way. Let it show what it does. So nobody needs to tell you. You don't need to believe anybody. You can observe for yourself the confinement of self-image, whether it's positive or negative. Because even a hard worked for positive self-image is an unstable affair, as time will show. It needs to be propped up, maintained, and repaired all the time. And there's nothing wrong with it, but it takes a tremendous amount of superficial energy which hides this deeper, I don't want to say aspect, which hides this wholeness which we are when we're not preoccupied with self-image and what they think about me. The thought comes up, trepidation arises, but see through it. What does it mean, see through it? See it for what it is. I don't want them to think of me this way. I want them to think of me like that, which they don't anyways, no matter how much I want it. See this play, this shadow play of pictures. For that, it is a shadow play. Is that what I am? A shadow play of pictures and remembrances. And to notice at a moment of trying to see a tree or the creek bubbling over the rocks, the sound of it, the sparkle of it, is there an unobstructed view, or is this picture there, how well I see it or how poorly? Maybe the others see it better. Maybe if I had a real practice, I could see it to perfection. These thoughts about bringing oneself into the picture, into the view, all the time, a lot of the time, sometimes. In talking about this with someone this morning, a memory popped up of one of the early retreats in California. We were at a beautiful place. And someone, it was before the retreat, I was in the hall looking through the large windows watching some deer, and I heard some argument way down the hall. Someone had arrived and was complaining about not having been given their own room. They were a teacher, and wasn't that known? And teachers get their own rooms. And actually the housekeeper, it wasn't staff, it wasn't Springwater staff, they were the staff of the place that we took this retreat in. She remained very firm. She wasn't bowled over. So someone arriving with an attitude, that's what we say today, isn't it? Has an attitude. And then one of the days coming to a meeting, quite different. It didn't seem an attitude entering. It was a human being. She said, you know what I found? I've never seen that before. That no matter what I look at, whether it's a tree or someone else or a building or the sky, I always bring myself in relationship with it. I've never seen that before. How marvelous. Not how marvelous that I bring myself in relationship with everything, but to see it. And at the seeing, there is a freeing of it and a lot of joy. That happens when the straitjacket bursts, even just for a moment, maybe. The straitjacket of self-consciousness, thinking about myself all the time. It doesn't have to be, even though it's deeply programmed. And no need to resolve New Year's Eve or whenever to get rid of it. There is no delete button on this organism. But there's this possibility of coming into view, becoming transparent. Thoughts, emotions, enclosure, becoming effortlessly transparent, even though one may have spent a lot of effort trying to see this thing of me, worked ever so hard and very discouraged, whatever. And then one knows not why or how, here it is, things the way they are, open, unobstructed. And I didn't do it. It has nothing to do with me or you. It's truth revealing itself on its own. Without levers or crowbars. So let's say one more word about this personality, because after the talk, I sort of anticipated somebody would ask about this. What do you mean, beyond personality? Don't we all have personalities? I like mine, someone said. I like my personality. I've worked on it. No, we're not talking about dismantling the personality or destroying it. Although this often happens out of misunderstanding of what spiritual work is all about. There is this superficial, and I'm not saying it judgmentally, but descriptively superficial, like the top of the ocean with its waves and bubbles and foam. The bubbles are the personalities. May not be a completely accurate analogy, but it's something that forms out of, you name it, is infinite, what all forms and goes into a personality. And no two personalities, whether these are twins, one-egged twins or two-egged twins, are the same. There's slightly different memories in each one of us, slightly different or grossly different experiences. Forming, molding this way in which we interrelate with each other and see the world. The part of the personality is the world that is created in our thoughts through our experiences and opinions and what we've read and what our parents have thought, or the opposite of what our parents have thought. So as long as we dwell in this personality world, which is made up out of personal experiences, memories, inheritance, a little bit different for each one of us. As long as this is our dwelling place and we'll hold on to it and fortify it, prop it up, defend it, protect it, we cannot be in true touch with each other and with this mysterious universe, which is life, aliveness. Can we see that, at least intellectually, or maybe more than intellectually? That as long as there's a holding on to my world, we cannot really communicate or commune with each other. on a deep level, which is beyond the bubbles and the foam and the waves and all the debris and stuff that floats on the surface. It needs a crack in the wall or the opening of a window or door, or best of all, a step out of it into the open air. Don't you notice that when you're here in the building, even though this building is incredibly constructed, so much communion with the outside through all these windows, and yet there's nothing like stepping outside of it altogether, leaving the window walls behind. Seeing the trees, not through glass, sometimes drippy glass. Nothing in between. And no one needing to bring themselves into relationship with it, even though one may watch the process happening from habit. The body is addicted to the fixes it gets, little energy fixes or big energy fixes, from thinking about itself in positive or negative ways. And that addiction has to be realized, that it is so. One craves that. But experimenting with it, one can also live without it. By which I mean a moment of a thought about me in relationship to that, or what is going to happen to me that's good. One thought and a positive energy fix, and noticing it. Noticing that this was already a separation from simple being. I don't mean as a matter of principle, but as a matter of actual truth. And then there's no need to continue with the fix. No need to keep thinking about the good thing that's going to happen or the bad thing that may happen, which comes out of meditative awareness. It doesn't come out of our superficial daily interactions, and they are much too imbued most of the time with self-reference. What's good for me, what's bad for me. Which isn't bad. It needs to be seen and understood and lived through more transparently than we do most of the time. So, in our daily interactions, we interact as personalities. Of course we do. One person has this personality due to a very loving home environment. Somebody has just the opposite, is harsh or edgy, or due to different kind of home or environment. This just being one of the factors. So, can we begin to live with each other's personalities? I almost want to say in a forgiving way. Meaning, let it be, sing the Beatles. I love that song. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Now, maybe this song is going to be churned around in the mind, as songs have a way of doing that. But what I mean to say is, it takes a deeper level of attention, insight, wisdom, to see that we are the way we are because this is the way this has formed and unfolded and proceeded due to 10 million and one cause. You can't even list this, all the causes of the past make this personality and that personality. But we are habituated to think, because we all think this way, we're educated to think this way. You did it and I'm doing this because I choose to be like this. And they choose to be like that. And if they only chose to, they could be different, more to my liking. And to question that, not say, well, I got to get rid of such opinions. That doesn't work. It needs to illuminate itself in watching it. And watching particularly in oneself. Whether there is any control over how we feel this moment, how we reacted, or whether it happened so speedily, there was no room and time for any me to be in there choosing. It's a fabrication of thought that there is a me inside choosing freely. One needs to watch that. It's the beauty of meditative transparency, to see how thought causes reaction, causes more thoughts, more emotions, more thinking and stuff. And no one doing it. It happens on its own. But thought can also say, I did it and I shouldn't have done it. Touching upon a very complex topic, which is observable in each one of us here. Are we interested to explore, to wonder, and to live, at least for moments at a time, vulnerably, without defensiveness? No matter what it may bring? Birds are talking, calling. We will end here for today.